What's up, everybody? We are back for another episode of the Think Big podcast. As you can see, I just woke up from a quick 5-minute power nap. So this is the travel essentials. If you are traveling across the country, as I'm doing right now, you have to have your travel essentials, which means you got to get your night mask, you got to get your do-rag, and you got to get yourself some awesome friends who are going to hook it up with the Airbnb for you to hang out in. Now, as we get some people tuning in, I'm excited about tonight's call because last week we had the young man, Sam Singh, hold it down for the entire episode. He recorded the whole episode on his own, which I freaking loved. Shout out to Sam Singh. What's up, Ivan? This week, you guys got me. Sam may or may not jump on tonight's call because he is out doing one of my favorite things. He is running his business and closing some deals. He's working on closing up on a rental property, going through title, going through some TC work. And so I told him that it's all good, Sam, get out of here. I'm going to handle it because tonight I want to talk about an important topic, which is how to close deals with no sales experience. I'm going to get into that in just a moment. But before I do, I want to do a couple of announcements. First off, if you guys are in the Chicago area, if you live in or around Chicago, if you're in Illinois, if you're in whatever places are nearby, Milwaukee, or we just came from not Montana, the other one, Michigan. If you are in those states or in Ohio, we are doing a meetup tomorrow, Thursday. Today is Tuesday. We're doing a meetup on Thursday for anyone that's interested in real estate, anyone that's interested in entrepreneurship. Come hang out. Myself, Caroline, Oscar Setiwan, Nita Patel. We are excited to be able to meet you guys. We've been going around the Chicago town since 2 days ago. Amazing marketplace. This area is gentrifying like nobody's business. The growth here is unreal. Seeing what people are doing with the properties, seeing the architecture, I am blown out of my mind. Ivan, we've been down to South Florida. In fact, we were just in South Florida earlier this year. We were there in January is when we went for a action adventure mastermind. And so that was amazing. If you get the opportunity to come up north, come on up, come visit. But I'm sure we'll be back in South Florida. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. By the way, if you guys want to keep up with where we're going to be next, we're posting everything on the Instagram. We're pretty last minute with posting because we are flexible on the schedule. We ended up spending an extra week in Philadelphia that we were not intending to do. It just happened because we were with good people. Tonight, we're going to be talking about an important topic: how to close more deals, how to do this without sales experience, because I've been finding that some people are struggling getting deals done, whether it's in real estate. And by the way, closing deals, it's not just particular to real estate. Any business survives off of two things. If you're taking notes tonight, I would write this down. Every business requires these two things: marketing and sales. You have to market and you have to sell. And so effectively, I find people struggle closing deals, not because they are terrible salespeople or not even because they lack the sales experience. It's more so that the marketing isn't dialed in. And I want to talk about this tonight because what I discovered in my own personal journey of real estate entrepreneurship, high performance coaching, is that if your marketing is done well, pay attention to this. If your marketing is done well, you can suck at sales and still make money. If you understand marketing on a fundamental level, I want you to start thinking about it like this. I want you to think about it in terms of this. You only learn how to sell because your marketing sucks. If marketing is done well, you don't actually need to learn how to sell. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to give a real life example of this. When I started in real estate, I went to a Robert Kiyosaki 3-day mentorship seminar. So one of those seminars that happen at like a Hilton hotel. I sat down. This is back in October of 2019. I went out there and I learned all about creative financing and wholesaling, buying and hold, and using OPM and how to leverage credit and all that kind of stuff. And they did such an amazing job presenting and also essentially marketing their product. And they found me. They put the right type of person in the room that when it came time for them to sell me on coaching, which was a $25,000 investment, they did not have to work hard to sell me. And I'm somebody who doesn't spend money easily. I'm not a person that's out there swiping my credit card for everything. I'm not a person that's just making these big purchases. I mean, if I spend $50, I consider spending $50 a lot of money. So getting me to part with my money is actually pretty difficult. But because they did such a good job at getting me, the right person in the room, talking about the right problem, they made it very easy for their salespeople to convert me as a customer. I'll explain. I bring it up because since joining in with that community and that group and going through that mentorship, I've been able to go out, build my own real estate business, buy rental properties, do fix and flips, do wholesales, and all the like. And as a result, they called me back and asked me to come in and join them to help teach and sell coaching. And so I do high ticket sales on the weekends when I have free time, when I'm not traveling across the world, when I'm not road tripping with my best friends. I'll go and I'll do high ticket sales on the weekend where I'm selling the same education that was sold to me for 25, 30, 40, $50,000. And I'm converting it on new clients, people who I've sat down with for less than 24 to 78 hours. These are a cold audience, and we will do big numbers. I'm not going to say what we do, but we do big numbers. And what's interesting, actually, I'll just say it, guys. Like, we, on a typical weekend, we'll do anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million in sales. And that's not a big woo. It's, what's interesting is the reason we convert so well is because the marketing is so dialed in. What I started to discover as I was doing the sales on the weekends was our marketing machine does a good job at attracting and bringing in the right person who has the right problem for the solution we offer. This is critical for your business and critical for your sales. If you bring forth the right person and put the right person in front of the salesperson who has the solution, selling will happen on its own. The transaction begins to happen on its own. Because ultimately, I like to have a saying in sales: you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, and vice versa. You can't say the right thing to the wrong person. What I struggled with often on in the beginning was feeling like I was screwing up every sales call because I was just going out and blindly calling a list of data, a list of prospects that did or did not have a problem. I would just take phone numbers associated with addresses and I would just start pitching every single person I talked to, not realizing I was talking to people who were not motivated and not interested. When I started to understand I have to dial in my marketing machine and first change the way I think about marketing in general, this is when I started getting more traction in my business. When I say start to dial in the marketing, what it meant was I had to get very niche down on what is the problem I want to solve. When people talk about, well, we need to market more, we need to market more. The issue is they think marketing simply means, hey, we just need to blast more stuff out there. And that's one way to play the marketing game. But most people, especially if you're a newer entrepreneur, you don't have the budget to play that game because you've got companies like Coca-Cola playing that game. You got buddies like Top Dog Law who's playing that game. You've got people like the Blackstone. No, I wouldn't say Blackstone, but I would say Target and Sears. And there's so many companies that go out and they play the mass marketing game of we're just going to put our brand and our logo in front of your face for hundreds of thousands of times because we have millions and millions of dollars to do so with. You don't want to go up against these people because unfortunately, you don't have that budget. Instead, what you got to sit down and think about is who is your ideal customer? Who's the person that you most ideally want to be in front of? Get clear about that person. Start to give that person a name. Make that a single person. Don't try to sell to everyone. The biggest mistake I see is when people are trying to sell to every single person. They're trying to talk to everybody with their marketing, thinking, well, if more people see me, I'm going to win. It's not about if more people see you. It's if more of the right people see you. Who are the right people? The right people are the ones who have a problem that you like to solve. For real estate, for me, here's what my thought process started to do for me. It started to show me that the problem I liked solving was I liked talking to older, tired landlords, aka people who were 65 years and older, who owned multiple properties, who had been self managing, who wanted to liquidate their assets without going through the headache of fixing it up and evicting tenants. I love talking to those people. I got very specific about reaching out directly to that small group of people because I understood those people. Because my parents, my father was essentially one of those people, and not in a negative way. I just watched it. He was someone who was a hard worker. He had his traditional W-2 job. He would go to work every morning, leaving the house around 5 a.m., come home and or finish up work around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then have to commute in traffic to come home, but oftentimes couldn't come straight home because he had to go to the properties first to check on the garbage on the side of the house and to check on the siding and to check on the tenants calling about the heat or whatever the case was. And he wouldn't get home till 8, 9 o'clock at night. And I watched how it slowly tired him out. I watched how he didn't have much energy for other things. And as a result, when it came time to sell the property, he was willing to sell the property at a discount simply to get rid of it so he can move on to other things. I was aware that this sort of person existed. Therefore, my marketing, what I did was when I went into the marketplace and I started to create content, when I started to make phone calls, when I started to get data, when I started to outreach to people, I was looking for a very specific type of person that if I spoke to that problem, guess what happened? They naturally wanted to do business with me because I understood them and their problem so minutely, so specifically, where they would hear something and it felt like I was talking to them personally. That's the job of your marketing. Your marketing should do the job of selling for you. If your marketing is good, you don't have to be good at sales. If your marketing is good, you don't have to be good at sales. And again, this doesn't mean everyone's so concerned about the marketing vehicle, right? Like, well, should I be doing SMS or cold call or should I do AI outreach? And all those things are awesome. They all work and they're going to work and fluctuate. And some seasons they won't work, some seasons they will work. But I need you to understand the foundation, the framework behind the marketing. The framework behind the marketing is I need to speak to a very specific person having a very specific problem. Your marketing, pay attention, should be polarizing. Polarizing. What do I mean polarizing? If anyone who knows what polarizing means, it means that your marketing should be, people should be in one of two camps. I either absolutely love what you're saying or I absolutely hate what you're saying. If people are in the middle, if they're lukewarm on your marketing isn't specific enough. It's not going to convert. It will get eyeballs. It may get eyeballs. It may get attention. But what's going to happen on the back end is your salespeople will have to work so much harder to convert a person because the marketing didn't niche them out. The marketing didn't separate the crowd. You want the people that are hell yeses. When someone listens to your marketing, when someone gets a phone call from you, gets a piece of direct mail, it should speak to them so specifically that they should be thinking, these people understand my problem and my situation. And it's not a matter of will I do business? It's a matter of when will I do business with them. This is important. And so I actually had an example of this. I have examples of this multiple times coming from, funny enough, less from my real estate business, more from my coaching business. I've had this conversation several times. In fact, I had it earlier today as well because someone new just signed up for coaching with me where it's cool. This is actually one of my favorite types of sales conversations. When we start the conversation, they say to me, Marlon, you don't need to sell me on anything. I'm already bought, right? Like I already know I'm working with you. I already know I want to go forward with you because of what you've put out, because of the things you've said, because of the content you have on social media, because of your YouTube, because of this, that, and the third, that I'm already game. Those are my favorite conversations because it lets me know that my marketing is working. My marketing does the job of selling for me. Let your marketing do the heavy lifting. If you do this, you don't need to worry about the sales experience. Start thinking about the customer experience from start to finish. Focus on the customer experience from start to finish. So let's cover something. When your customer first hears about you or hears about your product, whether it's in real estate, you're outreaching and you're doing a cold call, whether it's your online marketing, you're a digital marketer and you're putting out content, Facebook ads or Instagram or YouTube or whatever the case is, think about how do you want them to feel the first time they come across your content, your messaging, your marketing. Something I thought about is immediately when a person comes across anything I put out, I want them to feel like they're being spoken to specifically. So I use words and I use language that speaks specifically to their problem. I want them to feel like this was made for them. Start to think about how can you create content that's made specifically for that person. The next thing that I start to think about is from the standpoint of how do I want them to feel? I want them to feel that they're receiving value. So this is interesting. When I make and I write like a script for an Instagram ad, or I'm writing out a sales script for my sales team or whatever the case is, I will actually think through this. I will think through, is this going to bring them value? I put myself in a mindset of how do I make it that what I'm going to say is going to bring value? I get intentional about this piece. Oftentimes, I feel that people aren't getting intentional about providing value before making a sale, before asking for something, before asking for a request. People can feel what your intentions are. People could tell when you actually care about them or when you simply care about yourself. You guys have been watching. I'm curious to know in the chat, how many of you guys have been watching the Think Big podcast for multiple episodes? That this is not your episode number 1. That this is like episode 90. This is episode 93 for me. But how many of you have been here for multiple episodes? Who've been here for 10 plus episodes or 20 plus episodes or 30 plus episodes? If you've been here for multiple episodes, you see that our intention, Ivan says he has been, you see that our intention is to always to give and give and to give more value. Abraham, what's going on, Abraham? Abraham's been here for multiple episodes. So our intention is always to give more value. So we set that clear intention. Sam and I and Alejandro and I will have the conversation before the podcast ever even starts on how can we give more value. Therefore, people start to feel that. In fact, what I've been wanting to do recently, and you guys tell me if you'd be open to this or interested in this, is to have people come up from the audience so we can have a back and forth, a little bit more of a Q&A. That I've been wanting to do for a long time. Yeah, no, trust me, people told us that we're kind of crazy for doing this for free, and we're going to keep doing it because ultimately our goal is to put out as much value as humanly possible. And I will admit some days are harder than others, just simply because of the fact that we got busy schedules, right? So Ivan, here's what I would love to do. If you're game, let's have you come up tonight because I miss having a co-host. I like talking to people. I like bouncing energy back and forth. And if you're game for that, I would love to bring you up. I'm going to drop the link inside the comment. So Ivan, let's bring you up backstage. But in the meantime, while we get Ivan up here tonight, I want to bring it back to this concept of marketing. When marketing is done well, the people that you sit in front of, that you have a product to share, they should feel like it's already awesome, Ivan. They should feel like that it's already, it's the solution to their problem. In fact, my first mentor, he said to me, Marlon, sales is service. He said, sales is, I used to struggle with the idea of selling. He said, sales is service. He said, so when you're marketing, what you want to think about is sharing the value. And so you're telling people about the way you can solve their problem. You're sharing the value there. All right. Looks like someone just popped into the studio in the back. Cool. All right, guys. And if you're now popping in, if you want to come up live tonight, because I want to have a conversation with a person. I want to talk back and forth with a person. So Ivan, I think Ivan's coming up right now. Awesome. Let's go. Karen says 1+ episode. All right. So on another note, guys, again, just a quick reminder, if you are in the Chicago area, come and hang out, come meet up with us on Thursday evening. We're doing a meetup in Chicago with the community. So come hang out, come connect. So just waiting for Ivan to come on up. Cool. And while he gets that ready, guys, you might be wondering why I have this on my head. It is literally because I was going to take a nap right before this got started. What's up, Caroline? Yeah. So you on a phone call still?
We are tired.
We are very tired.
What is this? You're the only one?
I'm the only one, but we got Ivan coming up here tonight.
Oh, dope.
Yep. Yeah. Sam is out closing a deal.
Who else we got on here? This is awesome. Let's see. Abraham's on here too?
Yep.
Dude,
so we're going to bring Ivan up.
What's up, Ivan?
What's going on, Ivan?
What's up, guys? Can you hear me?
Sure. Yo, what's up, Ivan? How you feeling today, brother?
I'm feeling really good. Thank you. How about you?
Dude, I'm feeling sensational, man. I got my my night gear on.
I see that.
Naps after this. Yo, Ivan, where are you based out of?
I live in Miami, but I go to college in Tallahassee. I go to Florida State.
Oh, nice. And what are you focusing on in business right now?
I'm working with Mac. We're wholesaling.
Mac from out of Arizona?
Yeah. We're wholesaling, and I've been working with him for like the last couple months now, and so that's just trying to kill deals.
Dude, I freaking love it, man. So right now, as you're working on wholesaling, what's anything that you're being challenged with right now?
I guess, obviously, I've been developing in terms of communicating with people. That's something that obviously I had to work on, and I've gotten to the point where I feel like I'm decent on the phone at the very least. The thing is reaching the right people, which is why this episode, when you first started talking about it, I was like, this is perfect. Me and Mac, we're actually talking about it a lot, where it's just a matter of reaching the right people. I had been thinking, and I mean, since I'm here with you now, I might as well ask you, how much of it would you say is volume over quality?
Dude, great question, man. All right, so quality is, you want quality over volume personally. Like, it's just volume is a game that can be played, and there are big players that play the volume game. Some of my earlier mentors, I watched them play the volume game, one of being Pace. This is how I learned this. He did two things. He had a very niche list that was very specific, that his main closers would spend their typical day-to-day energy on. But because they had so much resources and they grew a team, they had an army, and I literally mean an army, of approximately 47 cold callers. They had 47 cold callers because, remember, they owned a virtual assistant company. And so with 47 cold callers, they are able to blast through a lot of data. And they were narrowed down into the Arizona market. So in order to keep their cold callers working, what they did was they actually, them and a few other of the biggest investors in the area would go ahead and buy the data for literally every single property in the state of Phoenix, Arizona, like in that whole area. So we're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of records. Actually, I think it came up to a little over 1 million records. They would skip trace that entire list. And then the code callers would literally canvas the entire metropolitan, like the metro area of Phoenix, Arizona.
Wow.
And they were talking to a lot of people who were not motivated. They were talking to a lot of people that were telling you to go screw off, but also because they were simply turning over every rock, they were on occasion finding people who they otherwise would not have found, because these people wouldn't have existed on any paying list like a pre-foreclosure or tax liens or anything like that. Now, they were spending a pretty penny for that budgeting effort, as you can imagine. Most people don't have that sort of marketing to begin with. And so I tell everyone else, narrow it down and narrow the focus into a specific problem that you want to solve. And so, as I mentioned earlier, my list that I love doing, and I got amazing results from this list. Tired landlords. So I would aim for people who are 65 years and older, who owned 5 or more properties in their personal name. So not anyone who owned it in an LLC. If they owned it in an LLC, I didn't want to talk to them because it meant they were a little bit more sophisticated than the person I was looking for. I wanted in their personal name because that signified this is more of a mom and pop side hustle operation.
Yeah.
And then the reason I wanted 5 or more properties and all locally central to one another inside the same area, it meant that odds are there's a great chance that they are self-managing the units. And I know how that conversation goes. And so that was the problem I wanted to solve for. I got very used to knowing how that conversation would go. I started being able to predict that conversation. And after so many reps with it, it truly became the same conversation over and over and over. The same thing started to happen when I started going after pre-foreclosures as well. Pre-foreclosure became the problem that I decided I wanted to get good at solving. And I liked it because ultimately when I'm looking for a motivation, I'm not just looking for a reason that they want to sell. I'm looking for a reason that they have to sell. And pre-foreclosure, can you guess what my favorite thing about pre-foreclosures are?
I guess that they have to sell, or you can help them out, I guess.
That they have to sell, but what about the time frame?
Right. Some of them are really tight.
Yep. So it's that there's a sense of urgency. And I appreciated that because as a wholesaler, I wanted to get paid now. And so the issue with my tired landlord list, which I loved, it made me the most money. The challenge with it was they weren't always ready to sell now. A lot of those people, I mean, I was following up with them for months. So once my pipeline was filled, it was consistently producing 2 to 3 leads for me with just me and one VA. Right. And so I was happy with that. Not 2 to 3 leads, 2 to 3 contracts. So I was consistently getting 2 to 3 contracts per month with just the tired landlord pipeline as a result of having built that pipeline over a few months. The pre-foreclosure pipeline, it started to, instead of it taking a year to 15 months for a deal to close, it'd be, hey, we're getting these deals closed in 30 to 90 days based on my market. I was in Wisconsin. So you want to be in a state where pre-foreclosures, you understand that situation and that how it works in that particular state, because certain states are going to have different allotments of time. But ultimately, when you narrow down, you start to get better at the conversation because for you, it's the same conversation. For the homeowner, it's the first time they're having that conversation. For you, it's the 100th time that day. That's a big game changer.
Definitely.
So as that starts to happen, one more thing I want to mention with this is I want you to think about it from this standpoint. Your job as a professional, I'm going to say, as a real estate professional, is to be able to guide the conversation. You should be able to guide the conversation because you've had the conversation so many more times, kind of like guiding somebody on the dance floor. You should know the routine. You're going to lead them through it because people, when they're hurting, they want to be led. And so, again, if your marketing is off or you're marketing for problems that you don't know how to solve, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Instead, start to speak to the problems that you know they have, that you know you can solve. And now you seem like a better dancer because you're the person that's able to guide them through this thing that they don't know how to do.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely felt it because I'd say pre-foreclosures are the niche list that I've enjoyed talking to the most for the exact same reasons that you mentioned. We're on a tight schedule. A lot of the time we're on a tight schedule. There's desperation. There's a lot of opportunity there. And so as I've continued, I've shifted just personally. I've shifted more towards focusing on the pre-foreclosures, and then I'll do everything else that we got going on.
Yep.
And I've noticed myself that when I'm having these conversations with people who want to have conversations, the conversation goes exactly how I want it to go. That's so like you're just like proving it that that's exactly how it works.
Yep. And something else that you'll be able to do, Ivan, because if you're dialing in on your marketing and you're narrowing in on your marketing, there's two types of marketing that you want to pay attention to. And this is something that really helped when I was wholesaling. I had two types of marketing. I had my customer or client facing marketing, which essentially was the cold calling and the SMS going out into the world. And for a bit of time, we were doing Facebook ads, Facebook leads, but mostly cold calling and SMS. Then there's so that's my B2C, right? Business to customer. Then there's my B2B marketing, right? My B2B. So this was me as a wholesaler reaching out to other wholesalers. And what I started to do was when I realized I'm niched down and I enjoy solving this particular problem, I started to let other people know these are the sort of problems I like to solve and this is how I'm useful. So bring these types of leads to me, because other people I found when I was getting started, everyone starts in a different place, and some people had budgets to hire cold callers immediately to go get PPC and PPL and all the things, but they didn't have the time or the know-how to actually be able to close the deal. They just were following along. They were in a course or the guru said, go buy this. So they bought it, and they'll bump into opportunities, but not be able to close them yourself. Have you come across people like that who've been able to drum up a lead or drum up an opportunity, but they didn't quite know what to do with it after they got it?
Definitely. We were actually working with someone because I'm Dominican, so I speak fluent Spanish.
Oh, nice.
So we were working with someone who was bringing, he was doing PPCs.
Yep.
And he had leads that he couldn't close because they were Spanish speakers. And so we had that situation where we were able to help out there. That didn't go too far, but still, I've definitely seen that. Or Mac has also told me about situations where people go to him for whatever reason. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And so when you start branding yourself effectively, right? So the fact that you're fluent in Spanish and you understand real estate, that's one thing that you can do to now let people know, hey, bring these types of problems to me, AKA you got a Spanish speaking seller, bring it to me. And so you let people know, especially if you got a Spanish speaking person in pre-foreclosure, bring it to me.
Yeah.
And you start letting people know this is the problem you solve. So now other wholesalers who go and get opportunities and they've just been focused on, well, I just need to go out and cold call. So they're cold calling like crazy. They get really good at being able to drum up an opportunity, but they don't know how to take it to the finish line. They will think about you because you've said, hey, this is the specific problem I like to solve. And so I started doing that. And what ended up happening was a lot of my business started getting generated. A lot of my leads started getting generated on someone else's marketing dollars, which I loved.
Wow.
Someone else was generating the leads and they started helping to fill my pipeline, because all I did was I branded myself as Milwaukee Marlin. Like when I would meet people, I'd say Milwaukee Marlin, Milwaukee Marlin, Milwaukee Marlin. And so when they got a deal in Milwaukee, or they started marketing and they got something in Milwaukee, or they heard about something in Milwaukee, they reached out to me. And then when I told them, hey, I love talking to old people, if you ever get an old seller, right, like an old person, reach out to me. And so then a lot of people were like, hey, I got this guy. He's 93 years old. He's afraid he's going to die next year and he doesn't know what to do. And I didn't know what to tell him. So I told him my partner would talk to him. Can you talk to him? Right. So when you start niching down, what ends up happening is you teach the marketplace how to bring you opportunities.
Wow. Yeah. And how much, I guess this is kind of like a sidestep, but how much of your business today would you say, or your success, let's say earlier on, actually, how much of your success came from you building your brand up? I know you mentioned it briefly in terms of wholesaling, but I know you do other things as well.
Yep. So that's a great question. All right. So Ivan, check this out. This happened totally on accident, and I'm grateful it did. I would say in the early days, in the first 8 months for me, it took me 8 months to get my first deal. And that was just a result of me just sitting at the phones, cold calling all day myself, just banging my head against the wall. And I was like, okay, that took forever. But during that time, here's what I was doing. It was during the pandemic when I got into real estate, and I lived in New York at the time. Everything was closed up and shut down. You did not leave your house in New York. People weren't going out their front door. And so I was like cooped up in the house all the time. And before that time, I wasn't really big on social media. I had it, but I didn't really post a lot of content. I started doing these daily story updates, just taking out my phone. And as I was learning about real estate, I was making these stories. And I mean, everything I was learning. Like, hey guys, today I learned that a mortgage and a deed are two different things. Hey guys, today I learned that most mortgages are 30-year terms and commercial mortgages are 20-year terms. Like, just any little bit of real estate knowledge I got, I was sharing. And along with that, I was also sharing, hey, today I made 37 calls. I got told F you 14 times. I like got the phone hung up on me 3 times. Like, I was just tracking everything just as a way of being able to keep myself entertained and trying to connect with other people. And what ended up happening as a result of that is people were paying attention. And I didn't quite realize how many people were paying attention, but people were watching it, people at all levels. Right? I had newbies who were also, I was new as well, who were watching me. And I also had people who were seasoned investors. Right? Like one of my buddies, Alon, he was watching, and Alon now controls about $150 million of real estate. Awesome dude. But he was watching, he was taking note of the things I was doing. And more importantly, he was seeing that I was consistently doing the work and showing up. Right? Consistency, if I can give you any bit of advice, is the first thing needed, the first ingredient in becoming a successful entrepreneur. If you can't even be consistent, then nothing else matters. Consistency creates the compounding of results. Consistency allows you to show up day to day and actually build the business. And so people were starting to see that I was consistent. And Ivan, what ended up happening as a result was after I got my first few deals, I had been wholesaling all of them, thinking I need to stack capital in order to be able to buy my first property, which is right thinking. I tell everyone you want to stack money and have it as a war chest so that you can hold on to assets. But I had always heard my first mentor tell me, Marlon, if you find a good deal, the money will find you. Have you ever heard something like that before?
Yeah, I've heard you say it.
Awesome. And it's true. It's so freaking true. And so one day I have this like this moment of sitting down, and I had just sold a deal. I had it under contract for, I remember this one specifically. I had it under contract for $15,500, right? A house for $15,000, which is crazy, right? Like people pay more for cars than they do houses. And I go to market this house, and I have this other investor who ends up buying the house from me for $25,000. And so I assign it, I make $9,500. And it was interesting because at that moment in time, that was also my largest assignment at that moment. That was like one of my early deals. And I'm like, wow, I just made $9,500. And the interesting thing is I had one investor told me, no, that's a terrible deal. Like I wouldn't buy it. And then I had another guy who just paid me $9,500 for it. So one person said it's worth nothing, and another guy nearly gives me $10,000 extra and is happy as hell to hold on to it. And so I started asking the question, like, well, what did he see that I didn't see? Like, why am I so ready to throw these properties away and get the check, and they're so ready to buy them? So I started thinking from a buyer for the first time ever. I had only ever been thinking as a wholesaler, just wanting to transact and get money. And now that I had a little bit of money saved up, I'm starting to ask myself, what are buyers thinking about when they buy these properties? And I started to run the numbers on the property, right? At $16,000, had I bought this property, and I forget exactly what the rent rate was on the property. I forget the exact numbers, but when I ran the ROI of what the annual income would have been on the property, I realized that this thing would have produced, if I bought it cash, it was producing something like a 28% ROI on the money. In other words, in 4 years, if I had spent my own cash, that property would have replenished all the money, and then it would have just been all profit from that point on. And I'm like, that's a pretty large ROI on your money, right?
Yeah.
To double your money in 4 years, that's pretty huge. And of course, if I had used leverage, it would have been an even higher ROI. And so with that, I decided I'm going to keep the next property. And I promise you, this comes back to answer the question about brand. I decide on the next property, I'm not wholesaling it no matter what. I'm holding on to it. I'm keeping it. My mentor said, if I found a good deal, the money will find me. Clearly, if I'm wholesaling a property, it has to be a good deal because people are paying me more than what I even have it under contract for. So when I get the next deal, I get it under contract. And I remember I'm saying, I'm keeping this property, money, find me. And I'm like, I'm looking around, like I'm waiting, like, where is the money? And I'm like, all right, like I guess I got to do something more. But I've made up my mind that I'm going to keep the property. So what's super interesting, Ivan, the creativity I was looking for like a solution to figure out how the money will find me didn't come until after I made the commitment. After I committed, I first had to commit and decide I'm buying this house. And I'm emphasizing this because I really want you to hear this. Creativity follows commitment, right? Like answers only come after you commit to solving the problem. But if you're kind of like, well, let me like test, like kind of sneak peek the answer first before I decide if I'm going to go down this route, you won't get the creative spark you're looking for. It doesn't come, the parachute doesn't open until after you jump.
So you're just saying you got to be all in or nothing,
all in
for you to succeed in that space, right?
Right. And you have to be all in for those coincidences to occur, for serendipity to happen, for the creative spark that you always hear people talk about. That thing comes as a result of making a decision and sticking to it. So when I make this decision, I'm buying this house. It wasn't an instantaneous answer appears. I kind of waited around for a day and I'm like, okay, nothing's happening, but I'm committed to buying this house. And they said the money will come. Okay, I know what I'll do. I'm going to go on Facebook and I'm just going to make a post saying, I've got this house. I need money. I'm looking to raise private money. Is anybody interested? So I make that post, a very basic post, right? I don't know what I don't know. So I'm just doing whatever I think might be right. And what ends up happening is a woman reaches out. She messages me privately and says, how much money do you need? Okay. I say $50,000. She says, where do you need me to send it? And I'm thinking like, no way this is actually happening. This cannot be real. And now I'm not worried that she's a bot because I do see that we are a part of the same Facebook group. And so I trust that she's a real woman and this is actually happening. But I got to be honest, man. In that moment, my brain is saying, hurry up and give her your bank account information so she could send the money over before she realizes you have no clue what you're doing and this is the first house you're buying. And I'm just like thinking like, just shut up and give her the number. Shut up and give her the thing. But I'm curious, man. Like, and so I ask her, I say, and her name's Tanisha. I say, Tanisha, why are you lending me the money? You do know that this is my first deal that I'm actually buying, right? Like I've never actually bought a deal before this. And she goes, yeah, I know that. And this is the thing that changed my life. She said, but I've been watching your stories.
Wow.
And I can tell that you're a good person.
Wow.
And now here's the crazy part to me. She said she had been watching, but this is before I really ever checked like my analytics or things of that nature. She had never commented. And this is before Instagram has like those little like buttons on the stories or any of that kind of stuff. So it's not really being engaged with. I have no clue she's even watching. She never commented on any of my stuff. She never like messaged me before that. So I didn't even know she was in the audience. And that's when I started to realize the power of brand and the power of sharing your story. Because she lent me the money on that deal. And then in that moment, I had this proof of concept of, wow, there are people out there who have money literally sitting around who are willing to give it to a kid who knows nothing so that he can go and invest, because I showed her that I was consistently showing up. I showed her that here's one of the important things I realized with the brand. I wasn't showing her perfection. I was showing her progress. And that's what a lot of people screw up. Everyone's thinking, I'm going to wait until I can show perfection. The problem with waiting until you can show perfection is two things. One, perfection never comes because it's not real. So you're always going to feel like, well, it's not ready yet. And then two, you're robbing people of something. Let me ask you this, Ivan. Do you have any musicians or actors or famous people that you've been able to watch their journey, like from the time that maybe they were less known to now they're well known?
Yes, I was listening to. I don't really listen to country music that much, but Zach Bryan, who he's like absolutely massive now. I was listening to him like a long time ago. I want to say like well over 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago before
Yep.
anybody knew him.
So I love that. And Zach Bryan's awesome.
Yeah.
And so what's cool is you got to listen to him from before, and now like he's blown up and he's more mainstream now. And now everyone's kind of catching that wave. But let me ask you this question. As a fan of his music, do you feel a deeper connection to the music? Do you feel like you got to be a part of the journey because you got to see the come up?
Definitely. I mean, yeah, most definitely. I mean, I would love to meet him for that reason. Like, I'm not super fanboy of any famous people, but for that reason, I feel like man, like he almost feels like a friend, but not really, obviously. But yeah,
Dude, but 100%. And so the cool thing about that, right? That only got to happen as a result of him sharing his process, him sharing the entire journey, him not waiting for perfection, but him saying, hey, I'm going to share the whole journey from start to finish. And
yeah,
so he gave you, a fan, an opportunity to be with him through that whole thing. And now there's a deeper level of connection that you're able to have that a newer fan doesn't have. And so in our business now, when we start to build the brand and we start sharing the journey, we're allowing people to come on and be fans earlier on. We're allowing them to become day one fans, and they get to be there through the whole journey. So what I did was I allowed Tanisha to see my process before she ever lent to me. She got to see this kid knows absolutely nothing. He doesn't know anything about anything. To, oh, he's starting to figure things out. Oh, when things screw up and like deals go south and he gets cussed out, he doesn't let it affect himself. Like, she got to see my character. She got to
yeah,
see who I was. She got to see me show up day after day after day. She got to see the consistency. And the most important thing, because I was showing the good, the bad, and the ugly, here's what she really got to see. And this is like a ninja tactic when it comes to raising money. She got to see that when things went wrong, I didn't run away. Right? Because eventually shit will hit the fan. That's inevitable. But when it happens, what type of person are you in those moments? Luckily, I had already shown her. So she wasn't gambling that if something happened to the deal, I was going to be a person that she might not hear from again. She saw, okay, he's going to continue to show up even if something bad does go wrong, and he'll continue to communicate through it.
yeah. You were being genuine to the public.
Being genuine and being authentic.
Yeah,
And so from the branding standpoint, when that clicked, thanks to her, so she's really the one that made that click for me because of what she said to me when I asked her why is she lending me the money. At that point, I became very intentional about sharing the rest of my journey and sharing everything I was up to in business and in life. And since then, because of that, it brought to me deals, it brought to me private money, it brought to me business partners, it brought a lot of things to me. And so it's something I still very actively do today,
yeah,
that I share the journey and I share the process because I never know who's watching. And I know if I'm showing and sharing my most authentic version of me and I'm just doing the work that should be done that everyone says they're doing, then ultimately it'll start to bring in with it more opportunities and more resources.
yeah. Definitely. And I only asked because Mac had brought up the idea to me. It was just on a whim, but I had stuck in my head of at the very least, like going on YouTube, making YouTube videos, breaking down some of the deals we're doing, and that sort of thing. Because like I'm 18, right? And I feel like an 18-year-old making those sort of videos or this big old assignment, like that'll bring a lot of attention. I don't lose anything from it. And so I asked that question thinking like, because I see you, obviously you have this brand and you're doing so well, like you can't have lost anything from it. And it was all from being genuine and putting in the work. I don't know if you've read The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene.
No, I haven't read that book, but I'll add it to the reading list.
That book, it's the same guy that wrote The 48 Laws of Power, right?
Yep.
That book is just insane. I highly recommend it. But I'm only going to talk about the part that says that talks about being genuine. Like people have like this feeling, they feel when you're being honest. Like it's almost inexplicable. And when you said that, I was like, that's it. Pretty much this whole conversation just confirmed that I definitely need to get onto that when the time comes. And maybe the time is very soon. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. I mean, it sounds like the time's right now because you guys are already doing deals and you're already, the thing is sharing the process and with the authenticity and being genuine. Here's something. Are you familiar with Nikola Tesla? Have you ever heard that name?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So Nikola Tesla, he said, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of frequency. He says everything is vibration and everything is frequency. And, things that are of higher vibration and higher frequency are more positive. Things of a lower vibration and lower frequency are what we consider more negative. And so with that being the case, things that humans put out, human emotion and human characteristics vibrate at different frequencies, right? Like anger is a lower vibration compared to joy. And for a human, do you know what the highest vibration is for a human? Any guess?
Love. I don't know.
Damn close. Love is up there. Love is very high on the spectrum. The highest vibration is truth.
Wow.
Right? Truth with a capital T, authenticity. When you're being true, you are being authentic, you are vibrating at the highest level. And people resonate with authenticity. What's cool is at 18, you know this now and you're learning this and you get the opportunity to share this. Go out and be your most true, your most authentic version of you and learn how to share that because that can be scary. And the reason I say learn how to share it is because people tend to not want to share it for worry of one thing, rejection.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's easy if you reject me and I'm pretending to be something else, it's easy to brush that off because you didn't actually reject me. You rejected the mask I was wearing. Yeah. Right. It's like if I go out in a mask on and I'm wearing a suit and you can't see who I am, I could dance around. I could do all the things. It doesn't matter. Right. Or if a person's going out and they're drinking, they put on this mask, right, with the alcohol. So if they get rejected while they're drunk, it doesn't faze them because you didn't actually reject them. But at the same time, you didn't actually accept them either because you didn't ever get the real version of them. If you go out and you start practicing being courageous and sharing the most authentic, true version of you, what you're going to find is you're going to polarize the world. And some people are going to come to either love you or hate you. And that's okay. We're so worried about being hated that we don't think we're more concerned that I don't want to be hated versus I want to be loved, genuinely loved. I'd rather have this and put my focus and attention over here than worry about not being hated.
Yeah. Even if that group is smaller and the people who love you, the
exactly.
love you feel from them is so much greater than the hate you'll feel from the others.
Exactly. And something that you probably know this, where your attention goes, energy flows.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you put your attention on the things that are working well for you that you love, and you start to give gratitude and appreciation for it, what happens if you give gratitude towards something or appreciation towards something?
You feel more gratitude in general, right? Not even in regards to that whole thing. You're not haunted by something else, if that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, and here's what actually happens as well. You're absolutely right. What happens when a property appreciates?
It gains value, right? You get to sell it for more money.
It gains value. It grows. When you appreciate things in life, guess what? They gain more value. Yeah. They grow. So when you appreciate people in your life, they grow. When you appreciate the money that you do have, it grows. When you appreciate the good health that you have, it grows. It's an interesting thing. And words matter. So give appreciation to things that you enjoy. Give appreciation to things that you desire.
That's
That's fine.
That's Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It talks about that briefly. I don't know if you've read that one either, but
Yep.
if you haven't, that one talks about that briefly, and it's great to hear that from you, because it's just like, one thing is reading it from a book and another thing is hearing it from a person who's experienced it, and it's like, and you've actually manifested that sort of behavior, and it's like, there are the results, right? You're successful and you're living this sort of life that's just awesome, right?
Dude, I mean, literally, like in this exact moment, my life is a living manifestation. And I don't say that to like impress anybody. I say that more so to impress upon you. Right? Like I'm sitting, I mentioned this at the beginning of the podcast. Like I'm hanging out right now on my buddy Oscar's Airbnb. Right. The funny thing about, like, to show you how this whole thing comes full circle, years ago, the most pressing thought I had on my mind years ago wasn't I want more money. It wasn't I want a Ferrari. It wasn't that I want like a big dream house. Can I tell you what the biggest thing that my mind was obsessed about?
What?
I want cool friends who do epic things so that I would have an epic life. And my thing was, I was like, all right, I come up with like a creative idea of something fun to do once every like 2 or 3 weeks. But how awesome would it be if every single day of my life there was something fun and new to do? Because my other friend would say, hey, let's go do this. And then the next day, another friend would say, hey, let's go and do this. And everyone would have the means and resources to go and make it happen. And so that's what I asked for. I was like, God, like, give me the coolest friends. Give me like rich, wealthy, happy friends who are healthy and they want to go on adventures and they want to go and live life and they want to do all the things so that my life could be this constant adventure from day to day to day. And I would have this epic life resume. So on the deathbed, I would look back and say, that was fun.
Wow.
And here I am, literally in Chicago for the first time ever, staying at my buddy's house in Airbnb. Like, we've been going out every night for the last few nights. I mean, like, it's been a nonstop adventure for the last 2 weeks already. And this is only the first 2 weeks of a 5-month or 5 to 6 week trip. And every day has been an adventure. So I'm living in the manifestation of it simply because I stayed focused on it. And I started to appreciate when I noticed that the little bits of it were coming true and coming into fruition. Instead of saying, oh man, it's like, it's not the full adventure that I wanted yet, I appreciated I just met a new cool person today. Oh, we just hopped on an hour-long phone call and it was epic. Oh man, I just got to talk to Ivan. Like, I just got to talk to an 18-year-old who is absolutely like just crushing life and has his head on straight. Like, this is a cool conversation for me. This is the sort of life I wanted to create. And so I appreciate these moments. And as I appreciate them, more of these moments happen and they grow in intensity.
Yeah, damn. That's awesome, man. I'm really happy that we're having this conversation. I'm sure we'll talk again. I know we're running out of time, right? I have so many questions and so many different things I'd love to talk about. But yeah, I really appreciate all the wisdom you're throwing at, and all the free wisdom that all of you give out. You, Sam, Alejandro. It's just crazy. When Mac introduced me to this podcast, I was like, there's just no way that this is free, right? Like,
dude,
so,
brother, I appreciate you coming on here tonight because I personally love the back and forth.
Yeah.
And sorry about that. The Airbnb alarm's about to go off. Let me just turn it off right now. We got Caroline rolling in through the back door. Perfect. There we go. So I appreciate the back and forth and being able to have this conversation. I like personally talking to people versus just monologuing by myself. Yeah. And so this was way fun, way epic for me. And dude, let's do this again. Let's have you come back on another episode. And if you got like a list of questions, man, whether it's business, whether it's mindset, whether it's philosophy, whether it's life, I geek out on these conversations, man. I love these little conversations. They are just fun as heck for me.
Yeah, you have no idea. Especially for you, you know, obviously one thing is like talking about it with my friends or the people around me, and another thing is talking about it with someone who's in a position that I want to be in the future, or in a similar position to the one that I want to be in the future. And so you don't even know how many questions I got for you. There's just not enough time in the world, but I'll probably send them your way at some point. I will probably
Yeah, man.
I'm sure
Dude,
at some point we'll be on podcasts together. That's the goal.
Dude, let's do it, man. Yeah, and if you got the questions, dude, do this. Write them down. DM, like, shoot them over to me on IG. DM them to me, and then we'll either make content about it, or like I said, I'll have you come back up. I'll be like, yo, Ivan, let's hop on a call and let's just go through them and run through the questions.
Yeah,
if you're game for that.
So down for that.
Awesome, brother. Well, dude, I appreciate you, man. We're going to wrap up this episode. Guys, we appreciate everyone for hanging out in the chat. Be sure if you got value tonight, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back next week for another episode of the Think Big podcast. We got Sam. He'll be back on. He'll have that deal closed. Hopefully, Ivan's got some questions for us then.